Cricket Rockstar Nation, welcome one and all to the second episode of the Sixes Cricket Facts podcast with Tyrelle Audain, aka the Cricket Rockstar Devo. We're delighted that y'all are here once again for this episode. On the debut episode, in case you all missed it, I did discuss the Asia Cup along with the India versus West Indies test match. But today there's three topics I'll be chatting about. One, the first India versus West Indies test match, which I did predicted would last less than 3 days. And I would also like to discuss the state of West Indies cricket, or should I say the state of how the sport is in absolute steroids right now in the Caribbean. And what I mean by steroids, I mean a hot damn mess. We cannot end this show without talking about the ongoing ICC Women's Cricket World Cup, which is happening in India and Sri Lanka. That's the third topic we'll be discussing. So those are the three topics we'll be discussing on today's episode. As we start off this show, we'll be talking about the first India versus West Indies test, which I did say to you all on the last show was going to be a one-man demolition show. And Team India, or should I say the Indian team, they show why they have always been dominant on home soil, with the exception of what happened last year. India, they literally destroyed the West Indies in less than 3 days, and that was courtesy of KL Rahul, Dhruv Jurel, Ravindra Jadeja, Mohammad Suraj, and Jasprit Bumrah. Those were the five men that was very instrumental in destroying a helpless West Indies team inside less than 3 days by an innings 140 runs in the first test match that was played at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. And also, did you know that this test match also took place the same time as this Indian festival, Dussehra, which was one of the real reasons why there was lack of crowds for the first test match. And it's very unusual to see less crowds for a test on Indian soil. You would see it in smaller countries, or should I say in countries that are not a part of the big three, but this is a shocker, let me tell you. But what does always bring smiles to the Indian people is cricket, because cricket is a religion in India. Before I get to the three batters that scored the centuries, I want to touch on Jasprit Bumrah and Mohammad Suraj. Why? Because those two lethal bowlers ripped through an awful looking West Indies top order on what was a moisture-heavy day one in Ahmedabad, proving that modern Indian cricket is just as dependent on its quicks as it's with its spinners. Suraj was the pick of the bowlers in the first innings for India, finishing with magnificent figures of 4 for 40 from 14 overs. He even returned with second innings haul of 3 for 31 to complete a comprehensive match-winning performance. Suraj did his damage very early on, taking 3 wickets in a lethal 7-over opening spell early in the first session, and his success, mind you, did came from exploiting the pitch movement and bounce. Now keep in mind, West Indies won the toss and opted to bat first on a pitch that was behaving quite wonderfully well for the Seamers, and there was a lot of bounce and movement earlier on. According to what the pitch experts were saying, when the match was moving along, it would get slower and lower and would favor the spinners. For the first time in a long time, we are seeing success from the Seamers. It happened last year against Bangladesh and also against New Zealand, but it didn't go quite well for the home team. And his trademark wobble seam deliveries. Now, Mohammad Suraj, for quite a while now, has been in red-hot form. This is from the previous series in England, where he was the chief destroyer in all 5 tests, playing in all 5 tests, and asserting himself as India's most informed and dependable pacer. Later on in an interview in Hindi, he joked about how he was denied a fiver. But these match-winning figures of 7 wickets isn't all that bad though. His efforts in the test match broke the back of the West Indies innings. Furthermore, that is where the game was done and dusted very early on. It was Suraj and Bumrah's doing all the damage very early on in the match that literally was the real reason for West Indies collapsing as expected. Now, on the last show, I mentioned how West Indies isn't going to have a good time at all in India, or as what some of the former players, like for example, the likes of Clive Lloyd and a few of the others were saying that this West Indies team will not last 3 days against the Indians. And I totally agree. And once I saw it earlier on, I knew that demolition derby was in progress from the host. Coming to the three centurions now. KL Rahul, as we all know, is a Zabardast world-class player. And what I meant by Zabardast, wonderful. But I'll tell you something. He has a history of converting overseas form. He has had problems with converting overseas form to home dominance, but in the past, that was the case. However, this time around, now that Rohit Sharma has retired from Test, he has all but made the opening position a permanent role for himself. Now, I'll tell you something. KL Rahul played absolutely wonderful. And furthermore, just before this series, he, along with a few of the other senior players, they did play against Australia, along with some first-class cricket as well. His 100, which was only his second Test match century on home soil in a career which did span over a decade, ended a long wait of 3,200 days for a home Test match century. That's right, most of his Test match centuries have been outside of India. And it's not a surprise though, because KL Rahul has always been a player who would buckle down and look for those big scores. And this other guy too, who is new to the Test team, or should I say has been around in the Test setup for the last year or so, Tyrelle. Now he came through the IPL, but I'll tell you something about this guy. He is not just he's not just a good player, but is a wonderful understudy for the injured Rishabh Pant, who is not playing in this series. He, mind you, came into the team and made an impression, and furthermore, he has already cemented his place in the Indian team. However, once Pant comes back from injury, there's going to be competition for that all-important number 5 position between him and Pant. Once, or should I say, his maiden century wasn't just about determination to score runs, but also his calmness during his time in the middle. What was more impressive to see was how he batted like if he was already a regular on the Test team, and it truly not only frustrated a hapless West Indies bowling attack that are without the two Josephs, but it had them under a lot of pressure. As for Ravindra Jadeja, his 6th Test match turn, which truly was it literally was the icing on the cake for India. Truly, because when Jadeja comes out to bat almost all of the time, he always plays with attacking intentions, and that's been a trademark of him for a long time. To sum things up, the opening Test match was a ruthless display of all-around Indian quality. The centuries of Rahul, Tyrelle and Jadeja was top-notch, just like with the fast bowling duel of Mohammad Siraj and Jasper Bumrah, who shared those 7 wickets among themselves early on. And that is where the experts, and that's what the experts were saying. The Indians literally, or should I say, how should I say it? Once Siraj and Bumrah did all the damage, from right there, the Test match, or should I say the game, was virtually over, done and dusted, just before the end of the second day. Why? Because day 1 was all about Siraj and Bumrah. Day 2 was about the 3 centurions, and day 3, Jadeja and Kuldeep. They cleaned up the West Indies batters without any problems. Truth must be told, and this is where I reach the second topic, or should I say half the first topic, the entirety of the second topic. Truth must be told that the West Indies, in my opinion, they shouldn't be playing Test cricket currently. Why? Because if you look at the problem that West Indies batters have been having for quite a long time, and this goes back to the late 90s, into the 2000s, the 2010s, and now. The bowlers, or should I say this current crop of West Indian bowlers they have there. Now, once Azari Joseph and Shamar Joseph comes back from injury, they're going to be absolutely lethal. I've said since the Australia series, the bowling attack isn't the problem. The main issue I have here is that the crop of batters that are on the team, they are pure rubbish. And as a cricket fan myself, I've just had enough of this shenanigans. It's a shameful disgrace really to stay up late and watch the amount of foolishness West Indies have been doing for too long now. And that is where I reach the second topic, or should I say, sticking with West Indies cricket. Now, in the first test match against India, not one West Indian batter got over 40 plus and carried on. There have been 20s and 30s, and other than that, it's the same rubbish that's happening over and over. And that brings me to my second topic now. As you all know, just before the first test between India and West Indies, the Cricket West Indies had a press conference that took place just prior to the India series, which started on the Thursday, which was following the embarrassing display against Nepal, where they lost the series 2 matches to 1, all in Sharjah. And in the press conference they had, it was announced that the combined campuses and colleges, which is also known as CCC, and the West Indies Academy would no longer be a part of the Regional 4-Day, which is the first class competition, and the Regional Super 50, which is the List A competition. What was also announced by the Cricket Strategy and Officiating Committee of Cricket West Indies is that specialist coaches will be hired, a state-of-the-art high-performance centre will be set up, and there will be a close coordination with franchises that employ West Indian cricketers, so players' fitness can be monitored. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say viewers and my dear friends, this all goes back to the infamous 27 all-out against Australia that occurred at the Sabina Park in Kingston, Jamaica a few months ago in July. In a statement Cricket West Indies posted on its social media platforms that came out last week Thursday, they listed the major issues that have been destroying West Indies cricket for quite a long time, such as declining quality of regional tournaments, which I have been seeing throughout the last decade or two. Forget about the 2000s, but late 2000s till now, the regional competitions, in my opinion, have been in absolute decline. And I agree with that. Technical, tactical, and mental skills, which was also a part of the long list, along with underperforming franchise system, which also includes gap in infrastructure and facilities, lack of specialist coaching support, limited ICC revenue, limited ICC revenue share and financial constraints. Now, this has been a problem that has been haunting West Indies cricket for the last decade. You see the part with regards to ICC revenue. I am not too pleased with how the ICC has been sharing out its revenue, and this all goes back to 2014. Do you guys remember the movie in which two journalists, I believe, who are part of ESPN Cricket Info They did an independent movie about a decade ago titled Death of a Gentleman, in which they did expose the BCCI, Cricket Australia, and English cricket with regards to revenue sharing and how the big three, they would get all the millions and billions. As for the rest of the cricketing boards, they would get less than that. That's been a problem that's been haunting not just West Indies cricket for too long now, but also world cricket in general. Then what was also pointed out in the long list of things that was shared out by the committee was fragmented player development pathways, inadequate fitness and conditioning standards. So that is something that Lara spoke about just recently in India. And even Roston Chase, the West Indies test captain, even spoke about this. But this, in my opinion, what they did discuss, I do agree with it. However, the fitness and players running after the money, it's happening for quite a long time with West Indies cricket. Then also what also must be pointed out to the longer term actions that are more exhaustive, and it also includes a national cricket development framework unifying grassroots, school, academy, and high performance pathways. Now, we've been hearing about this for quite too long. What has been the progress with that? Nothing but things just sticking with West Indies cricket, just like with any governmental organization globally, minus the big countries. Also, what was listed here too was comprehensive franchise reform to ensure accountability for player development and consideration of alternative professional models, establishment of standardized academies for ages 11 to 18 to feed into the high performance program, completion of the High Performance Center in Antigua as the regional hub for elite development. I'm going to stop there just for 1 second. And the reason for that is because I'll tell you this. Do you guys remember the time in the early 2000s where Cricket West Indies, which was known as the West Indies Cricket Board, they had the Sajigo High Performance Center, which I believe was around for the early parts of 2010. Then this son of a bitch that came into power for Cricket West Indies between 2013 and 2019, Dave Cameron, he shut the whole High Performance Center down. And you know what that caused? Lack of player development, one. And then two, some of the cricketers who are part of that High Performance Center fell out of favor with some of the regional boards and had to move out of the Caribbean to the US to get more opportunities. This is something that needs to be highlighted seriously because High Performance Center isn't going to cut it alone. Furthermore, rather than having one High Performance Center, I would recommend to Cricket West Indies that they would have High Performance Center, not just in Antigua alone, but around the Caribbean. That would make it even better to have players who are from the respective islands train enough, not just in Antigua alone, but in their respective homeland. Because if we look at what's happening globally now, look for example with the BCCI, the ECB, and Cricket Australia, they have their high performance centers in those three countries are 1,000 times better than the ones we have not here in the Caribbean, but in also other countries that are way behind Australia, England, India, New Zealand, and South Africa. Can you imagine that? This one high performance center in the Caribbean isn't going to be enough. I would rather have every single high performance center in each Caribbean country. It would make better sense to have it there rather than all the young cricketers coming from one country all the way to Antigua. That would make any sense, period. Then it was also pointed out the greater focus on financial sustainability, which includes lobbying for equality ICC revenue distribution. Now, I've heard about the equality thing for way too long now, and also new partnerships with governments, private entities, and philanthropists. Also, they did point out a structured mentorship framework which connects current and former West Indies players with emerging talent. After seeing that press conference last week that CWI had, let me tell you all something. West Indies cricket isn't getting any better. Why I'm saying that? It continues to go 100 times backwards and not forward. Can you imagine? And I'm going to come to a couple of my opinions right now. Can you imagine removing developmental teams such as the combined campuses and colleges and the West Indies Academy from the first class and list A competitions? And why I'm not happy with that is because these two emerging teams, they've surprised many of the big Caribbean islands in the last couple of seasons. Like, for example, 2018, the same CCC who they removed won the regional Super 50. In 2019, the same West Indies Academy that they removed, they won the Super 50. These are sides that are creating emerging talents for the future, and yet still, what is West Indies cricket doing? Wasting them. What makes it more horrible is to see that CWI will be focusing on playing matches in countries that give government support and subsidies. Did you know that was something that the PCB has been doing with Pakistan cricket for quite some time? Why? And also my other point is, why would you go with contracts, or should I say longer contracts, for players who are just simply mercurial, or should I say mediocrity? Then my other point is, I'm also happy and very thankful to hear that they have sent the legends such as the great Brian Charles Lara, Sir Vivian Richards, and Sir Richie Richardson to do Mission India, not just for sponsorship, but also broadcasters, something that should have been done long ago. But it's better late than never, and it's a good thing. And what they also mentioned in the press conference was, for future regional competitions, they want to have one overseas player. So my question is, what do they mean by having What do they mean by domestic teams signing one overseas player? Are they trying to copy the county cricket like with the county championship? Remember the recently new Trinidad and Tobago government. Now, I don't talk politics much, but I must highlight this. Remember recently the new Trinidad and Tobago government a few weeks ago amended some law which allows sports athletes with parent slash grandparent holding Trinidad and Tobago visa to represent the country. Well, it was pointed out in the recent press conference that Cricket West Indies talent manager has actually reached out to cricketers with West Indian disposure. Now, that is something that they should have been doing for a long time now. You know why? I want to highlight another point. Do you all remember in 2008 where Brendan Nash, former West Indian batter who played for Queensland in the Sheffield Shields in the early 2000s, then represented Jamaica in regional competitions in the late 2000s, early 2010s. He was a part of the West Indies team and actually became the first Australian-born player to actually represent the West Indies team. I'm not too sure if he is the only one outside of the Caribbean to have represented the West Indies. I know there have been a few others of West Indian disposure in recent years to have represented the West Indies, like, for example, Hayden Walsh Jr., who actually played a couple of internationals for the US. He's from Antigua. And also just recently, a few weeks ago, Kareem Magor, who was scoring all those runs in the CPL. He played a few internationals for the US, then got selected for the West Indies because of constant performances in the CPL. Then this other point in which what they call them said how Darren Sammy coaching in the CPL is a benefit for talent. In my honest opinion, I disagree with this statement. Why? Because it's a conflict of interest. You cannot be coaching an international team in all formats and coaching a franchise team. It is a serious conflict of interest slash a breach of contract, something that CWI hasn't realized. You cannot coach West Indies and also coach the St. Lucia Kings, who he has been coaching for the last few seasons in the CPL. It is a serious breach of contract right there, or should I say it is a conflict of interest, something that CWI hasn't highlighted. I don't know what's the reason for that. Then too, within the last few years, coming to Super 50 now, within the last few years, Trinidad and Tobago has hosted the regional Super 50 a number of times. This year, they were supposed to co-host it with Guyana, who was actually supposed to host the semis and finals. However, Trinidad and Tobago will be hosting the entire tournament in its entirety due to Guyana backing out because of cost. Now, keep in mind, folks, this is the same Guyana who backed out of hosting the regional semifinals and finals, all because of course. Now, Guyana, mind you, has no problems with cost, and I'll tell you why. They have all of the oil money to go alongside hosting the CPL and the Global Super League yearly. Now, keep in mind the last 2 years, Guyana has been hosting the CPL finals from 2022 to 2025. Next year, they're hosting the finals in Barbados, which I have to point out. And last year, they created the Global Super League by inviting champions around the world and letting its own Amazon Warriors play. Now, I have a question to ask myself. What is the Cricket Association in Guyana doing with regards to not hosting regional events? They're using all that money to host franchise cricket. We all know franchise cricket is the future, but what are you all doing with regards to regional and international matches? Coincidentally, last year you all hosted a test match against South Africa in which the Proteas won. Only a few people came out to watch the match. Then the last time they hosted an international T20 was against India, in which more people came out because whenever India and England comes out to play the West Indies in the Caribbean, a lot of people would rather come out to see that rather than the other teams. And it's a damn fact which has been going on for years and years now. And then this other thing that Cricket West Indies did point it out was, hosting a bilateral series on just one island. I find that to be absolutely ludicrous, especially in modern times. I know it did work out in COVID times between 2020 and 2022. But if you look at England, Australia, India, South Africa, even New Zealand, they have hosted all of its international matches countrywide compared to West Indies, along with Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Zimbabwe. Those are the countries who I just mentioned are way behind with the modern times. compared to England, Australia, India, South Africa, and New Zealand, which continues to produce talent day after day, month after month, and year after year. Correction. Overall, in my opinion, reducing the regional competitions because of financial constraints is a big excuse, not just for the sport in the Caribbean, but also for the development for West Indies cricketers, future stars, and the list goes on. Furthermore, I would rather have someone with cricketing knowledge running the sport rather than someone who barely plays the game and is involved in politics. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back from this commercial break, we're going to be moving away from the men's game to be discussing the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup, which is currently ongoing in India and Sri Lanka, respectively. So, for the time being, we're going to take a break and we'll be back right after we watch this. Welcome back to Sixers Cricket Facts podcast hosted by yours truly, Tyrelle Audain. So we're moving away from the men's game to the women's game now, as the ongoing ICC Women's Cricket World Cup is happening in India and Sri Lanka respectively. And so far, the host India, they have been off to a flawless start to their campaign, winning their first two matches against Sri Lanka and Pakistan, courtesy an excellent all-round display from Deepti Sharma and a critical half-century from Amarjot Kaur, which established the innings after an early wobble in the opening match at Guwahati. As for their second match against Pakistan, well, as expected, it would turn out to be a one-sided affair at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo, as the hosts secured a crushing 88-run victory over a Pakistani side that literally was never in the match except for in the times where they did held the Indians down until the tailenders got them to near 250. Speaking of tailenders, their bowlers, in particular, Kranti Gaur and Deepti Sharma, once again, they were the stars, which maintains India's perfect record against Pakistan in all women's one-day internationals and in all women's World Cup matches. The always heavy on the Let me rephrase this, folks. I apologize. The always heavyweight world champions and favourites Australia, their campaign is off to a rollicking, unstoppable start. They hammered New Zealand in the first game, courtesy a marvellous century from Ashleigh Gardner. Then their second match against the Sri Lankans in Colombo was a washout without a ball being bowled. And then today they played Pakistan, or should I say on Wednesday, which was today. They hammered Pakistan by 107 runs at the same Colombo venue. And let me tell you one thing, folks. At one stage, everybody thought a massive upset was on the cards. This was after Pakistan had the Australians on the ropes at 7 for 76. Yes, there was 76 for the loss of 7. Then Bet Mooney's marvelous century, along with handful contributions from Kim Garth and also leg spinner Alana King, got them up to 220 odd. And as expected, Pakistan, not a single batter contributed. They're just like West Indies, but the West Indies women, they're not in this competition, so let's not talk about them. Then South Africa, they had a shaky start, suffering a massive 10-wicket defeat to England last week, in which they were only bowled out for 69. Then they bounced back quickly with a comprehensive victory against New Zealand, which was powered by a brilliant century from Tasmit Brits and a solid performance by their bowlers. So my prediction for the semi-finals at the end of October obviously are going to be the two favourites in Australia and the host India. Just before this World Cup, these same two teams actually played what was an absolute classic of a one-day series. Now, the last game in Delhi, Australia scored over 416 runs, and India, they gave them one hell of a fight though. But in the end, they came up short, being bowled out, I think, for 330 something or somewhere there. Then there's also England and South Africa. But so far, looking at England's performances, They've been off to a brilliant start. However, they were given a shaky headache against Bangladesh, in which the Bangladeshi spinners had them in all sorts of trouble. However, thanks to their captain Heather Knight and Charlie Dean, they got them out of a hole to win the game by 4 wickets a couple of days back. So far, they're my four favorites. And the one surprising thing I must say is New Zealand, the winners of last year's Women's T20 World Cup, they've so far had a shaky start to its campaign as they have lost their first two games. But as what an old man said, or should I say, as an old saying which says, it's never over till it's over, and you never know what to expect. So far, one of my predictions, I would like to see New Zealand bounce back very quickly before they crash out as expected with regards to Pakistani women. I do not see any hopes with them. That is because Pakistan, they've lost their first three matches to Bangladesh, India, and Australia. And with that being said, all I can say is they're all but out of the running because they don't have batters who can stay there for a long time and accelerate because their bowling isn't the issue. Their spin bowlers, they have kept things very tight. However, I'm worried about their batting lineup because other than Sidra Amin, the rest of them have been disappointing. In particular, Captain Fatima Sana, who is supposed to be leading by example. I do not see Pakistan fighting back, but if they do fight back, it'll be a surprise. With that said, at the end of the, or should I say, let me go to the points table because so far things are looking very hot up at the moment. Australia, they're at the top of the table with 2 victories and a no result, followed by India with 2 wins out of two. England also has 2 out of 2. South Africa has won one, lost one. As for Bangladesh, the same thing as well. Won one, lost one. Pakistan, no wins out of their 3 games. New Zealand, surprisingly, have not won a single game yet. And Sri Lanka, they've lost one, and one game was a washout. So that's gonna do it for this episode, for this edition of the Sixers Cricket Fact Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Tyrelle Audain. Next time on the podcast, I'll be discussing the squad selections, or should I say, the Australia-India series, in which bowls off on the 18th of October. Sorry, guys, I'm not all that 100%. While I do try to talk loud, my sinuses is acting up a little bit, so my apologies. That's going to do it for this episode of the Sixers Cricket Fact Podcast, hosted by Tyrelle Audain. Remember to follow me on my social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram at TJ Audain Official, X/Twitter TJ Audain, and TikTok TJ Audain-Official. Till the next time we get together, on the next show, we're going to be looking back, or should I say, reviewing the... Oh no, where I'm going. I apologize, folks. So till the next time we get together, where we will preview the second test involving India and West Indies, the first test between Pakistan and South Africa, and also looking at the Australia and Indian squads that have been selected for the limited over series that bowls off next week, along with more Women's World Cup cricket. Until the next time we get together, be good, be cool, stay frosty, and we'll continue. So till then, my dear friends, bye for now.